In September of the year 9 AD, an imperial Roman army vanished. 3 legions, over 20,000 men, entered the wilds of Germania and never returned. Their commander, Publius Quinctilius Varus, believed he was marching to quell a rebellion. Instead, he led his legions into the jaws of one of the greatest betrayals in military history. The Roman Empire at the dawn of the 1st century was unmatched. From the sands of Egypt to the coasts of Hispania, Roman law, roads, and order stretched nearly unbroken. But beyond the Rhine, there lay the tribes of Germania, wild, decentralized, fiercely independent.
I offered them civilization, roads, commerce, peace, but the Germanic tribes did not submit as the Gauls had.
Unlike the Gauls, who were broken in open battle and bound by Roman law, the tribes of Germania vanished into forests, plotting in shadows what they could not challenge in the field.
They resisted, not with open warfare, but with cunning and chaos.
Publius Quinctilius Varus was not a warrior by nature. He was a patrician, known more for governance than the battlefield. Appointed to the volatile province of Germania, Varus sought to bring Roman order where none existed.
They said the Germans were wild, untamed, barbaric. I believe they simply needed law.
Varus believed order could be imposed like architecture, measured, rational, inevitable. But in the dark woods of Germania, Rome's blueprint would rot before it ever touched stone.
With census, taxation, and a firm hand, they too would fall into Rome's embrace.
But Germania had its own son of 2 worlds, Arminius, a prince of the Cherusci tribe, raised within Roman ranks, awarded citizenship, trained in strategy and cavalry warfare. To Rome, he was a loyal commander. To his people, he was something else entirely.
I wore their armor, spoke their tongue, but my heart never left these woods.
Arminius envisioned a homeland unburdened by foreign legions, a free Germania ruled by no one but its own.
Rome taught me how to conquer. I used their lessons to free my kin.
In the summer of 9 AD, all appeared calm. Arminius advised Varus. Local chieftains offered gifts, but beneath this peace, betrayal was brewing. Arminius had forged secret alliances with neighboring tribes. He had promised them a Roman slaughter.
I warned Varus. I told him, "Your trusted commander is planning your doom." But he laughed. He thought me jealous. He did not listen.
Under Arminius's suggestion, Varus redirected his forces eastward to address a supposed tribal uprising. With the 17th, 18th, and 19th legions, auxiliaries, camp followers, and families, the Roman columns stretched miles long, unwieldy, vulnerable.
We left the roads, into the forest, narrow paths, swamps on either side. I remember how the air just stilled. No birdsong, no breeze, nothing. The silence felt wrong. That's when the fear began to settle in. And Arminius, he was gone.
They struck like shadows, spears from the underbrush, fire from hidden ravines. Roman discipline collapsed in the first hour. They were ambushed, not once, but again and again, as the forest turned into a death trap.
We waited in silence. We knew their columns would break in the bog.
They had watched the Romans for weeks, mapping every rut in the trail, every blind turn in the forest. Arminius had drilled them in secrecy, assigning each warrior a position, each tribe a role. When the time came, they vanished into the trees, not as a mob, but as a plan, waiting for the earth itself to become their trap.
First the vanguard, then the wagons, then the general himself. We tore them apart tree by tree.
Varus ordered a retreat, but the paths were blocked. The forest was no longer terrain. It was a weapon. For the Romans, night brought no reprieve, only fear. The Roman legions had entered the woods as masters of war. But by nightfall of the first day, they were fractured, isolated, and surrounded. The Teutoburg Forest was now a graveyard in waiting.
I couldn't hear my own thoughts. Arrows from nowhere. Screams in the trees.
Trapped between marsh and trees, the legionaries found no ground to rally on. Panic spread faster than orders. Men called out for officers, for formations, for anything familiar, but the forest gave no answers.
We tried to form up, but the ground swallowed our feet. Every sound was death coming closer.
With no visibility and no maneuverability, the Romans built a crude camp. But food dwindled, spirits collapsed, wounds festered, and the Germans kept coming, now with overwhelming numbers and burning vengeance.
Struck at every bend. We split them from their wagons, cut their water lines. Our young earned glory. Rome, invincible Rome, was like a boar in a pit. It could only thrash.
At a choke point near Kalkriese, Arminius's men revealed their final trap: hidden ramparts. From above and below, the Romans were boxed in. Legionaries were slaughtered where they stood.
We hunted them like wolves, not for sport, for freedom. Their gods did not protect them. Their gold did not save them.
With his legions shattered and escape impossible, Varus chose the Roman way. He fell on his sword, along with many of his commanders, rather than suffer capture and humiliation.
Rome cannot fall her back turned. If we are to be broken, let it be in the light, on our feet, not in flight.
Varus had trusted Arminius, trusted that a Roman education could tame a tribal heart. But in the forest, surrounded and outmaneuvered, he saw the cost of that faith. There was no rescue, no retreat, only the slow realization that Rome had been outwitted and that honor would be measured not in victory, but in how one chose to fall.
Better a Roman death than a barbarian parade. And if the gods still watch, let them know I do not yield.
On the third day, there was no longer a battle. There was a purge. Survivors were hunted, officers mutilated, the legionary standards, the sacred eagles, ripped from their poles in symbolic triumph.
They captured our eagle. It was shameful. That eagle was more than bronze. It was Rome's soul. And they raised it on their own spears.
Victory was celebrated not with diplomacy, but ritual. Tacitus would later write of human heads nailed to trees, altars wet with Roman blood. Arminius had delivered the impossible.
I had given my people what Rome could not: sovereignty. No tribute, no overlords, no chains.
For a moment, Germania breathed free. No legions, no governors, no tribute. But freedom without unity is fragile.
And we will break them again. Unity is our strength.
I was Roman once, but Germania made me free.
When word reached Rome, the empire shook. The Emperor Augustus, veteran of civil war, founder of peace, was reported to scream into the night, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions."
We did not just lose soldiers at Teutoburg, we lost the image of Roman certainty, the kind that had carried us from the Rubicon to the Rhine.
It was the illusion of invincibility, of order, of destiny that shattered in those woods. 3 legions weren't just numbers. They were pillars of an empire.
The 17th, 18th, and 19th legions were gone, body and banner.
Rome did not just bury the fallen legions, it buried their names. The loss of 3 eagles was too great a shame. Struck from the rolls, the 17th, 18th, and 19th were consigned to silence.
No legion bearing those numbers would ever march again. Their designations were erased from every official roll.
1 eagle was hidden, another paraded through German lands. The 3rd, burned. It would take years of blood and bribes for Rome to reclaim even one. In 3 days, Rome's illusions were torn from the mist. Arminius had shattered the empire's ambition to rule all of Germania. But what came next would test his victory and threaten to undo it. Arminius had done the unthinkable. He crushed 3 Roman legions, turned the greatest military machine on earth backward, and reshaped the frontier of an empire. But his hardest battles were still ahead.
The Romans were gone, but we were not one. Arminius wanted unity.
You dare question my authority! This land is mine!
Yes! Your greed will be the ruin of us all! I will not stand by!
What he had was tribes, cousins, enemies, old debts, old scars.
To secure his victory, Arminius needed a nation. But Germania was no Rome. He called for unity, for a league of tribes, but mistrust ran deep. Even his father-in-law, Sergestus, opposed him, fearing tyranny.
He spoke of liberty, but demanded obedience. He killed my daughter's husband. He called it justice. I called it tyranny.
In 14 AD, 5 years after the disaster, the empire struck back. General Germanicus, adopted son of the late Augustus, launched a campaign to reclaim Roman honor. His target, Arminius.
The men followed not for land, but for honor. For what we lost in that forest.
The Romans crossed the Rhine with fire in their chests, eager to reclaim their lost eagles, to wash away shame with steel. For many, this was no campaign. It was retribution.
I did not march for conquest. I marched for vengeance, for Rome's soul.
The eagle wasn't just a bronze ornament, it was the soul of the legion, carried into every battle and never meant to fall.
Our standards would not rot in some barbarian bog. Not while I still breathed.
Over the next 2 years, Germanicus reclaimed lost ground, winning fierce battles at Idistaviso and the Angevarian Wall. At one point, he nearly captured Arminius himself.
We came so close, his helmet fell into the mud. But he vanished. He always vanished.
Yet victory came at a cost. Emperor Tiberius saw the danger of overextension. He recalled Germanicus, ending the campaigns. The Rhine would become Rome's final border. Germania, east of the river, would remain forever free.
It was not cowardice, it was wisdom. The forest could not be held, not by roads, not by force.
Even victory cost more than it gave. For every step taken past the Rhine, Rome paid in blood and coin.
The land devoured armies, swallowed supply lines, drained morale.
After Teutoburg, the Rhine was no longer a border, it was a lifeline. Every palisade, every ditch, every outpost became a message. Rome still stood, and no enemy would cross unchallenged again.
We fortified the Rhine and called it peace. Not surrender, no. Preservation.
Arminius did not live to see his dream fulfilled. In 21 AD, betrayed by rival chieftains and fearful allies, he was murdered, stabbed beneath the very trees he had used to destroy Rome.
We killed our hero. He freed us and frightened us. Without Rome, we feared each other more.
Without Arminius, Germania fell into the same rivalries he had briefly silenced. There would be no Germanic Empire, only scattered tribes, leaders, and blood feuds. In Rome, the message was clear. Germania could not be ruled, only watched. The legions were recalled, fortresses were razed. The Rhine became not a road forward, but a wall. The names of the lost legions, 17th, 18th, 19th, were struck from Roman rolls, never to be assigned again. Their banners lay buried, their memory wrapped in silence, but Rome never forgot. From the Teutoburg Forest, the empire learned its limits. Expansion was no longer destiny, it was a choice. Rome turned inward, its frontiers hardened, its diplomacy sharpened. The myth of invincibility had died in the woods. The forest remains. It holds no monuments, only memory. Beneath its roots lie bronze, iron, and bone. There are no banners left to raise. But the echoes of that storm, of ambition and betrayal, still stir the leaves.